All right, so just driving along and had a couple of things that were on my mind that I thought I would share with you. And part of it, I'm working on a talk that I'm giving in a couple of weeks. And it's really about looking back over 25 years, hard to believe, but 25 years of being a dad. So 25 years ago, I was asked to speak on a Sunday morning at my church and to talk about my expectations and hopes for what life would hold. And it turned out that that was the same week that my first son was born. And so it was, it was good timing. It made sense to have that conversation because that's what was on my mind. What's this little boy going to mean to my life? How am I going to live my life? What are we going to do? And making all the plans and all that kind of stuff. And there were a lot of things that were really, really important to me at that time in my life. And those were a lot of things that I kind of worked into my thought process on what would life be like with my son. What's interesting now is that he's 25. He's about to have his 25th birthday. And it'll happen just a couple of days after I've been asked to speak again on this topic. So it just kind of made sense to look back. And there are a couple of categories that things fell into. And those are some things that I just wanted to share with you while I'm just driving along and thinking through that talk. And the first one was, I had a lot of hopes and expectations on myself. What kind of a dad would I be? And I was a little bit nervous, but because I had been a youth pastor for quite a while before I had my son, I had this sense of confidence that, I had been working with a lot of parents and had training and those kind of things. I thought I wasn't too nervous about that part of it because I felt like I'd had some good insights. And that did hold to be true. However, I would say I definitely overestimated my knowledge, skills, and abilities when it came to dealing, with having children. So looking back at it, I'd say that, there's probably about 30% of what I thought would happen happened. And I would say that maybe 15% of that happened in the way that I thought it would happen. For the most part, it was just kind of a wild ride, doing the best that I can. I had to call on my ability to be adaptable in situations, to use skills and abilities, but in different ways than I had anticipated and that kind of stuff. But, more than anything, I think I struggled with being disappointed, not in my son and what he meant, not in, how other people interacted with my son and, kind of how the world treated him, or specifically, growing up, because I was working at a church at the time, it's a challenge. And this was a big concern for me. So he was going to grow up as as a kid whose dad worked in a church, kind of not really a pastor's kid, but close. And so I was a little worried about that and all the pressures and expectations that go along with that whole thing. So I was worried about that. But really, those weren't the things that really where I felt my disappointments. The disappointments really came in myself, in me, and the number of times that I just didn't handle situations well. The number of times that I got frustrated with him or with my former wife or with people. Like I'd get frustrated with the external situation, feeling like we'd been dealt a difficult hand in some way. But more than anything, looking back, it was just, disappointed with myself and kind of what I managed to do or to not do as a dad. But I think that one of the biggest things, I could be in a situation right now to where, I'm just looking back with constant regret on the way things went, on what I did or didn't do, what I could have done better. But along with that disappointment came the insight to deal with those disappointments, to recognize that just like I extended grace to church people who said things and made life difficult in certain ways. And now what I mean by that was that, when you're on staff with the church, some of you may not know this, when you're on staff with the church, there's kind of this expectation that you'll always be broke. And if you pull up in a new car or, buy nice things for your family or those kind of things, someone will always make a comment. And usually the comment is, we must be paying you too much. But there's always this undercurrent. It's not by everybody, but it's just enough to keep you kind of off balance, but this undercurrent that you're supposed to be broke. And there were times that, I recognized that was going on, and I was a little, and I got frustrated. Like I blamed, church people's like at one point, their grandfather offered to buy, I have two boys who are 18 months apart. I've only mentioned the first one, but their grandfather offered to buy them this really cool kind of battery operated, Jeep toy type things. And I turned it down because I knew that would create problems for me, that people would come in and they would ask questions and, make little comments. And I just really didn't want to have to deal with that. So my boys went out. And so I could stay disappointed with people for doing stuff like that or different situations. But what I learned is that just like we're wired for hope and optimism just to make it through life, we've also got to be wired and equip ourselves to deal with disappointment. We've got to be ready. And disappointment is simply, it's just that gap between expectations and reality. That the gap that's covered between the expectations and your reality, that's called disappointment. And it happens to all of us in a lot of different ways. But we have to learn how to deal with it. And so for me, learning how to deal with my own disappointment, to say, okay, I didn't handle that well. Beat myself up a little bit, trying to ask myself, why didn't I handle that well? Did I have bad information? Was it just, emotional baggage from something or whatever? But then the goal was to improve and to not handle it poorly in the future. And so I worked on that, and I worked on myself and trying to be, a better dad. And of course, life and work overlap so much, but, better dad, better business owner, employee, citizen, all those kind of things, just trying to better myself on a regular basis. And you don't get there by beating yourself up all the time. You don't get there by beating other people up all the time or staying mad at God, which a lot of people do when they get disappointed, but by simply saying, okay, this is how things are. It's not exactly what I thought. There's this gap that's been, created, this disappointment gap, but I can fill that gap with learning and with improvement. But there's also a level of forgiveness that has to come in. Just that sense of, hey, I may not have done a great job, but that's okay. I've learned from it, and I'm trying to do better, and I'm going to keep trying to do better. And I don't expect myself to be perfect. I don't expect other people to be perfect. None of us expect that, but even close to perfect. I don't expect myself to be close to perfect or anyone else to be close to perfect. But I can try and continue to grow and to learn. And I think as long as I'm learning and trying to grow, that's about the best I can do. So looking back over 25 years of parenting, I would say that, being flexible, recognizing the best plans, the best hopes and dreams probably aren't going to play out the way that you expect if you're a young parent. If you're an older parent, you already know this to be true. But beating ourselves up and lamenting what could have been or all the things that went wrong, that's not helpful either. What we can do, though, is use that as fuel to help us to grow and become a better person. And I think, honestly, if my boys were going to grade me, they'd grade me much higher as a dad than I grade myself. I hope so. I'm afraid to ask them, to be honest, because sometimes my boys like to give me a hard time. So who knows? They may give me a failing grade where I think I've done pretty well. But I just want to encourage you, if you're kind of in one of those places where you're feeling that gap, that disappointment gap, and you're looking back over some decisions you've made or some things, the ways you've handled some things, just learn from it. Learn and grow. Figure out how can I do things differently next time to where maybe I get a little bit different outcome. Learn how to forgive yourself, forgive other people, let go of stuff, don't hold on to it, don't dwell upon it, because that doesn't do any good. But do learn from it. Look at it, learn from it, and see how you do. So that's just a quick thought I want to share with you today. Hope you're having a great day, and I will share more thoughts as time goes.